Hi, today we're going to work on the technical excerpt for the 2015 Kentucky All-State Clarinet auditions. And this excerpt is number 8, and it's taken from the Rose 32 studies. It's a fun excerpt, but it really provides a number of technical challenges for the young player and for the old player like myself as well. First of all, when you look at this, we're doing measures 1 through 46, and there really are 3 distinctly different sections. So the way we're going to talk about this today is we're going to break the exercise down into those 3 different sections. We're going to start with the final section beginning in measure 32 to the end, because I think that's the trickiest section from a technical standpoint, and that's the one you might want to get going on very early in your practice, so that it has plenty of time to simmer and cook, so that you'll really be able to play it at a consistently high level when audition time rolls around. So the big problem with this section is measure 35, beginning measure 35, we've got these octave leaps. And what will frequently happen is the young player will want to just barrel through those and play them loud all the way through. Okay, not only is that not very pleasant, but it's really difficult to make the octave leap with speed and with flexibility and with clarity when you're just playing at a real steady and loud dynamic like that. So the way I would suggest practicing this section is to emphasize the bottom note with a little bit of a breath attack, and then simply release as you make the octave exchange. So it sounds a little more like so we have press, release, press, release, press, release, press, release. One other thing that's going to help a great deal is that if you can think ahead with the pinkies, you're going to help eliminate a big disturbance in the technical completion of the octave. So when you get to the second half of this first measure of 35, when I play the low B, I'm going to try to have the B key down. You can choose either your left hand or your right hand. The next C, the low C, I'm going to try to have the right hand C key down. And the next measure where I've got C sharp, I'm going to try to have the right hand C sharp key down, and so on and so forth. So instead of getting this big clunk like this, where the fingers are really hitting hard as we move up, you're going to be able to release with the breath and already have the fingers engaged. And it's going to allow you to be able to complete that measure, those couple bars, with a lot more efficiency and a lot less energy, and it's going to sound a lot better. Moving on to measure 39, we get these leaps again, not quite the octave, but now we're going from the top down. And we're going to do a similar thing in terms of our pressure and release. So as you can see, I did not play the upper notes in measure 39 and 40 the same as the lower. I went ahead and put a little pressure on the upper note, a little accent, and then I just released. If I just kept it all the same dynamic level, not only is it not as appealing from an artistic standpoint, but the instrument becomes less flexible. It gets harder to do. I also want to suggest this whole section will be a lot easier for you to play if you just in general don't play at such a loud dynamic level. Remember that in general, the clarinet is easier to play in terms of a flexibility standpoint and technical standpoint if we are not blowing at the top of our dynamic range. So this section beginning at 32, I would keep down a little bit at just a comfort level, so that you can manage the technique. Let's move on to the second section beginning at 16. Again, you're going to try to figure out what exactly does the composer want, what will the adjudicator want to hear. And in this section, we have the feature of this section, the hallmark feature of this section, is the couplet. So we have 2 notes under a slur, followed by 2 notes under a slur, followed by 2 notes under a slur. And what I would encourage you to do, again, do not ride this all on the same dynamic plane. Okay, not only is it, again, sort of unappealing, but artistically and in terms of the articulation, I think something else is really called for. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a slight release on the second note in each of these couplets. So in slow motion we get and so as we speed that up, it takes on just sort of a little bit of a flitting quality. It's swept along. And it's not so heavy. And also, again, if you do it this way, you're going to be able to rise and fall a little bit more with the shape of the line. So dynamically, it's not going to want to be all the same all the way through that. When you get to measure 25, just relax on this passage. Because it really is sort of closing the section down, and I don't think you want to be too aggressive with that. So again, practice it slowly, measure 17. With just an easy front end of the articulation on each couplet, taya, 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 and then just a natural release. And it's going to allow you to play very, very quickly, very, very flexibly, and also very, very musically. Let's go to the very first section, measure 1 through 15. What's going on here? Well, the most dominant articulation pattern is a staccato followed by 3 slurs. Going in an allegro tempo that is marked, I think you're going to want to make sure you don't play too short on the staccato 16th note. In fact, a good way to practice this is actually to maintain a legato quality so that we do not stop our air. One of the big problems with a passage like this is that students will want to really, really stop that staccato, and in doing so, they stop blowing the air, and we get something like this. And then so you can hear that the staccato is really interruptive in the line. And we must always remember, regardless of the articulation, staccato, slurred, legato, we're trying to make a musical line. So I'm going to practice this with a legato approach to that first 16th. So that I'm able to really shape the line. I can create a phrase. I can infuse it with dynamics and color and texture and quality. Now I'm going to gradually just touch my tongue a little bit longer to the reed on that first staccato 16th. And we start to move away from legato. It becomes more staccato. But I'm not going to change the air. The next step is I will touch a little longer. The next step I touch a little longer, and at this point we're about at the performance tempo. want that little bobble. But that's all the faster you're really going to want that may actually be a little too fast. But the point I was trying to get at is that the staccato cannot interrupt the phrase. It's just an articulation. The line goes forward, and we're always thinking in terms of making a musical line. So as you get practicing this, think of this excerpt in 3 distinctly different sections. Pick the one that's the hardest for you, and that's the one you begin practicing first, because that's going to be the one that needs the most time in terms of weeks or months of preparation for you to feel very, very, very comfortable. And by all means, do not look at this as a technical exercise. Look at it as a musical exercise that just happens to have some rapid articulation and fingers involved. But a judge is always looking to see if a young student can make music out of the technique. So I hope this is helpful, and please let me know if you have any questions. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great day now. Go practice.